Greetings folks, and this time on LGR I've got a technological craving that can only be satiated in a highly specific way, and that is with Socket 7, a particular x86 CPU specification introduced in 1995 supporting such classic processors as the Pentium MMX and the AMD K6. The end goal here is twofold. One, I want a system ideal for PC gaming and software from around 1996-97, and two, I want to redo the SBC build I did here on LGR a while back. Or rather, use the baby AT case that I built it in, which is now mostly empty save for the drives and the power supply. Cause yeah, toward the end of that video I came to the conclusion that I should have chosen a more appropriate ISA backplane for the SBC I was using. To quote myself, if I were to redo this, I would use this particular backplane. I don't know, maybe I will. I might just take it all apart and do it all over again, because I'm a masochist. Well, masochism confirmed, I guess. Because I'm redoing that entire SBC 486 in another case, and instead today we'll be using what's left for something completely different, a Socket 7 based PC running Windows 95. And my specific reasoning to build this exact configuration is multifaceted. The first reason is that here on LGR I'm constantly using the Woodgrain PC and the Megaluminum Monster to test different hardware and software, and those use Socket 3 and Socket 370 respectively. But as time goes on, I'm increasingly finding a need for a desktop in between a 486 and a Pentium 3. Something that specifically runs Windows 95 instead of 3.1 or 98. And it's gotta be at a speed that's not too slow but not too fast, in that sweet spot of hardware from 1996-97 where particular Windows 95 games and graphics card combos work best. And that's where Socket 7 comes in, since it's right there in the middle of my main two 90s systems, ideal for early PCI 3D accelerators. Another main reason for this build is, of course, pure nostalgia, an excuse to revisit some old memories. Like in 1997 when I got my second computer, an Acer Aspire, with that white plastic case molded in a funky wavy shape. I loved that thing. It was a Windows 95 Socket 7 system with 32 megs of RAM and an AMD K6 processor running at 233 MHz. One of these right here actually, a delightful CPU introduced in April of 97 that competed directly with the Pentium MMX lineup from Intel. With a 66 MHz front-side bus, 64K combined level 1 cache, and supporting the MMX instruction set. However, we're not going to be using this processor today. Instead, I'm going with a slower variant. It's still a K6, just running at 166 MHz. Because yeah, I've already got the Aspire running at 233, so that speed is covered, and I would use that as a project box, but the thing is though, upgrading that machine and swapping out parts inside sucks, with its irritating split motherboard and lackluster integrated graphics chip. Which brings us back to this Socket 7 build and a slower AMD K6, since it's different, but not too different. Plus I can pick a motherboard that isn't crap. Yeah, I wasn't kidding about having a highly specific craving here. I know precisely what I want out of this build, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. Starting with that 166 MHz K6, paired with this beautiful beast right here, the Asus P55 T2P4 from 1996, revision 2.3. A true classic that was well respected in its heyday and retains a solid reputation even now, having become an old standby among Socket 7 enthusiasts. There are dozens of us. Dozens! And this particular board's merits and pitfalls are well known and well documented, making it a true pleasure to work with a quarter century later. In addition to its support of all the exciting Socket 7 CPUs, you've got support for a cool 64 MB cacheable EDO DRAM via 4 72-pin SIMs, expandable up to 512 MB with the installation of a compatible TAG SRAM upgrade chip like this one right here. I'm only installing 32 megs of 60 nanosecond EDO RAM for now though, since it's all I need for the software I plan on running. Onboard level 2 cache varies, with this example having 256K from the factory, but that too can be expanded using a compatible 256K Coast module, or cache on a stick, doubling the L2 pipelined burst cache to 512K. Doesn't make a huge difference to gaming performance, but it's nice to have. Also nice are the floppy and dual IDE controllers built in, along with the standard headers for serial and parallel ports, and even one for connecting a PS2 mouse breakout port. Most excellent. The keyboard still uses the older 5-pin AT connector though, and it's also the motherboard's only integrated port. Finally, there's even a header for infrared communications, as well as USB. Yeah, USB in 1996. This actually predates the final specification, with the manual amusingly stating that current operating systems don't actually support USB, so it's disabled until future support arrives. Obviously that happened, so now you can add USB 1 ports using a breakout card like this, as long as the voltage pinout matches the motherboard. One of the not-so-great features is the inclusion of this Dallas clock chip, infamous among 90s PC enthusiasts due to the fact that they've basically all died and aren't straightforward to replace. As is often the case, it's soldered in directly to the motherboard as seen here, so you either have to modify the chip to install a coin cell or replace the thing entirely. The mod looks ugly in my view, so I just decided to desolder the dang thing and replace it with a brand new battery. There are still new Dallas-compatible clocks being manufactured, and they'll do the trick, but there are better options nowadays. Like this fantastic little module from Glitchworks, being a drop-in replacement for the Dallas RTC that accepts standard CR1225 coin cell batteries. Yeah, I bought a bunch of these a while ago and haven't looked back. It's really an ideal replacement for the 12887 as far as I'm concerned. The motherboard is also running the venerable Intel 430HX chipset, with 3 16-bit ISA slots and 4 PCI 2.1 slots, one of which has this nifty little expansion known as Media Bus 2.0. This allows for proprietary expansion cards to be installed, like this graphics and sound card combo, taking up only 1 expansion slot instead of 2. Although this card uses an older Media Bus spec, so I won't be using it for this build. And finally, there's overclocking. The P55TX-P4 series is notoriously overclockable, with the ability to take bus speeds up to 75 and even 83 MHz. A pretty unique feature back in '96 and still quite desirable among retro enthusiasts. I won't be messing with it in this video, though it's something I hope to check out in the future. And then there's the BIOS itself, which is a 90s icon. The classic award software CMOS setup utility with all the features and options you need, with the BIOS itself easily being flashable through software. Something I'm going to go ahead and do since there's a fantastic patched BIOS update available that adds support for newer CPUs and support for hard drives over 32 gigabytes. Pardon the messy setup, I just had a bunch of crap out on the table to test components before going further. Anyway, yeah. Without this update, connecting IDE drives larger than 32 gigs wasn't really supported and caused problems with system stability. Of course, I'm installing Windows 95, where 32 gigabytes is the max officially supported size anyway, so you'd think it wouldn't matter, but in my case it does. Since I had this old 160 gig drive lying around that I wanted to use, and without the BIOS update, it wasn't recognized by the system at all, even with a smaller partition size. With the update, it's no problem, so I've got it partitioned to 32 gigs for the OS and all my programs, which is plenty of space. I considered using this big old beefy boy, the Quantum Bigfoot, and while it would have been era appropriate, it's noisy and too big for the case, plus the reliability has never been, reliably reliable. So I'm sticking with a newer partitioned hard drive, and I'm also going to be installing this CF to IDE adapter. That way I have a drive I can quickly swap in and out as needed for transferring larger files to and from the internal hard drive, without having to rely on it also holding the operating system itself. And to make it both accessible and appealing to look at, I'm using this lovely 3D printed enclosure I got from an LGR viewer named Mark. He reached out to me and offered to design this drive carrier for me specifically to fit this exact compact flash adapter that I wanted to fit in a 3.5-inch drive bay, and I think it turned out great. He's got an eBay storefront too. I've bought all sorts of useful brackets, adapters, and drive bays from him that are super useful as someone without a 3D printer. About the only things left are sound and graphics cards, and the possibilities are seemingly endless with PCI cards of the mid to late 90s. So, in the interest of doing something slightly different, I'm going with an Audition 32 for the sound card here. I don't want to just use a Sound Blaster 16, a 128, or a Live for the 100th time, and I've already got an Aureal Vortex in my 98 machine. Plus I wanted something with solid support in both Windows and DOS, with both a wavetable header and a real OPL3 chip on board to get the best of both worlds. And for video, I'm going with 2 cards. The first being a 2MB S3 Trio 64-based card for handling the Windows GUI and non-accelerated 2D games. It's not something I've chosen for any 3D capabilities, because the real star of the show is this 3DFX Voodoo card. The Canopus Pure 3D with a whopping 6MB combined memory on board. And this one's a donation from an LGR viewer named Christopher, sealed up and never used until now. This is going to be awesome. I love early glide mode games, and I'm really curious how this particular card performs. And that's most of the housekeeping prep work out of the way. Now let's go ahead and dive into the actual build itself and test out the system with some classic PC games. Okay, first up, I'm going to get the motherboard put in here, and thankfully it's one of those cases where the backside completely slides out. I don't recall if I actually did this on the SBC build or not, but yeah, there's the whole motherboard tray, and just easily get things on there that way. And yeah, I've already gone ahead and installed Windows 95 on here just to make that easier. I mean, you know, you don't need to see that installation yet again. So yeah, this will be the C drive, and then the compact flash adapter thing will be accessible from the front. And as for the motherboard itself, yeah, just got the RAM already on there. I'm not using any extra cache. 256K is fine. It doesn't really affect gaming or anything I'm going to be doing on here. And I don't have tag installed because I only have 32 megs of RAM, not doing 64 or over. And as for the processor, I've actually got a Pentium 133 installed on there right now. We're just going to boot it up with this first, and then switch over to the K6 later. I just want to show something on here, and one of the reasons why I want to switch over to an AMD K6. And as for this tray, this is one of those where it expects all these like plastic standoffs to go behind the board, but this one's a little longer this way, and really the only 2 holes that line up with the metal standoffs are these 2 right here. That's it. Like, none of the other standoff screw holes in the back of this will work, so the rest of this is just plastic pieces sliding in here. Only 3 of them that go in there like that, and there's nothing on this side of the board whatsoever. There's a couple of holes here for them, but there's nothing behind there, and all my standoffs are too tall. I think what I'm going to do is just put a couple in there and clip them off, just so it has something behind there. I just don't like things flopping around like this. Okay. There we go, much more stable. Makes me feel better anyway. All right. Dang it. Stupid sharp old cases. Ugh. I swear I need chainmail gloves working on these things sometimes. Okay, just a matter of getting all of the daggum cables plugged in. I have made some attempts at cable management, at least zip tying a bunch of things up, and yeah, whatever. We'll do our best. It is what it is. Wow, I just noticed too, even if I was to install the cache module, it'd be like right up against this hard drive, or it might actually be too tall, depending on the module. Yeah, thankfully most of this I can just continue using as it was from the SBC build. Same power supply, same brackets on the back, except I've added the PS2 bracket since we had a header for that on here. Pretty much everything's the same otherwise. Oh yeah, I did replace the LED on the front of the case right here, because I actually blew the power LED on the other one because I plugged it into something and I didn't put a resistor, and yeah, it was sending too much voltage. It was just sort of a hack job. That didn't work, so anyway, replace the LED. Other than that, it's all the same stuff. Okay, so 2 of them aren't going to connect at all. I guess really 3. Because the turbo, there's no turbo switch function on the motherboard itself. It's just always in the fast mode, so don't be plugging in that or the LED really. In the hard disk LED, there's no header for it in the main cluster down there, so I'm assuming it's somewhere else. Okay, so it's JP20. Okay, so at least it's nearby. It's just somewhere other than the little main cluster of thingies there. How weird. All right, ribbon cable time. Blech. Great. Okay, can finally get to some cards. Kind of. This isn't really a card. I guess this is another header. USB. Not that I really need it for this system, but it's on here. It might work. I really cram it all in there. It is still blocking this top PCI slot. If I move this down, of course now we got all these cables in the way. There we go. All right, we're gonna go with the S3 at the top. Okay, there's that. And then the Voodoo card, that is going to be passing through that S3 card into here and then out to a VGA monitor. And unlike a lot of other Voodoo cards, check it out, the video in is this right here, which is not S-Video. That's what this is. This is an input. So it came with this little breakout deal here. And I'll just plug in there. And then this right here plugs into the S3 and that goes to the monitor. So a little different than any of the other Voodoo cards that I have actually before this. Interesting way of making it all fit in there because they wanted all those extra ports. Okay, a video input dongle for the Voodoo goes right here, and then that plugs in to the S3's VGA, and then that's that. The graceful setup of a Voodoo 1 pass-through. And finally, for the sound card. So this is the thing, I mentioned that the wavetable header on here is a positive, and it is, but this is such a short card, like this way, I didn't really think about it, because I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to use an SCB55 by Roland, get a proper sound canvas in there, but the thing is, you can probably see the problem just immediately, right? Look at that. It's gigantic compared to the actual Audition 32 Plus card itself. So that's not going to work. Of course, you know, I've got other wavetable cards, like this awesome little thing here, the Yucatan FX Reptile Paradise. It's kind of one of those Turtle Beach Cancun style things. A lot of the same parts, actually. Got a Roland GS inspired sound set on there. But even though it's as small as it is, look, it's still it's still too big for this little card. So that's not going to work either. I don't have anything that's smaller than this that has the capabilities that I want. So we're just going to go without wavetable for now. I do have another wavetable card that is smaller on the way. So I'll just install that whenever I get it. Knowing my luck, it'll show up as soon as this video goes live. Yeah, what I've got in the way is actually kind of like a really, really tiny version of this, sort of. It's the Dream Blaster X2 GS. It was recently released in the Certico shop, so it's in the mail. Just who knows when it'll get here because it comes from Belgium. And that's all the cards. And pretty much everything. This is just the CD audio header. I should have plugged that in first. Dang it. Alright, there we go. Now that's everything. Right. So, get it set up, boot it up with Windows 95, and show you what's going on with that Pentium chip that's in there, and then we're going to switch over here once you see why I want to switch over to it. Well, one of the reasons. Other reasons is just because I like the K6. So, yeah, let's boot it up. See it do its thing. Alright, time to turn it on. LEDs. Beeping. Drives spinning. And there we go. Yeah. So I got that Windows 95 installation already going, like I said earlier. Although I don't have the drivers for... Yeah, here's the sound card. I don't have the Voodoo drivers on there. I do have the S3 going, because I had that testing earlier. And yeah, I've copied over what I think are the latest drivers to the CF card there, so we'll see if we can get that going. Well, yeah, I was afraid of that. I think I actually have to do the installation of the software first. Should at least be able to get the Voodoo going here. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a setup thing, so. Do it this way, Yamaha Sax. Sweet. Hopefully that's all we need. I mean, I know it came with driver discs and stuff, but you can pretty much always get newer ones online, which is what it did. Thanks, Phil's Computer Lab. There we go. Nice. I do have speakers on this little monitor, so. Excellent. Yeah, I do have some things disabled. I've only got one COM port going at the moment, the printer port disabled. But yeah, I don't have anything plugged into those, so I don't need them. There's the S3 Trio doing its thing. Yeah, Voodoo Graphics. Game port, sound system. Got some DOS compatible thingies going here. I don't know if it's actually preset them up. Doesn't look like there's any software. Maybe that's what the other disc is. For the Yamaha card, I seem to remember seeing, well, okay. I thought there were like applications or something somewhere. I'm gonna have to look into that. Well, anyway, that's everything pretty much going. Obviously. Yay, things are working. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and continue screwing around with stuff, software and whatnot, make sure everything is all configured, and then we'll try out some games. And yeah, I'll be back in a amount of time, probably tomorrow morning. I mean, for you, it'll be immediate, but you know, whatever. Ooh, that message. Yeah, no soft power button here. Neat. Okay. So yeah, here it is, next morning, and I've been screwing around with this quite a bit last night, and in weeks prior, actually. Like I said, I kind of set up a version of this just out on the table to test things, make sure it all worked, and messing around with it more last night is actually working a little better than it was then. So some of the things I was thinking were going to be an issue aren't, so that's fun, but anyway, we'll get to that. So in terms of the software for the Audition 32 sound card, this is all that it installed when we got those drivers going. It was just the basic updated drivers. So that's, you know, it's fine. That's this stuff. But I knew that there was some more to go with it. So I installed the CD that came with it in the box. And it didn't add much. You got this little Audition 3D sound enabler. Whatever that does, just sort of emulates spatial sound around you in stereo. And then you got this Y Station 32, which that's cool. Not as impressive as a lot of the others that I've seen in terms of these music player stacks. I still don't have a wavetable thingy, and I'm gonna plug one of those in. Maybe I'll do a blurb update on that or something, but yeah, you got FM synth, MPU 401 output through GamePort, and a soft synth. So that does sound a little different. Yeah, it's kind of your typical GS, general MIDI kind of thing, but it's doing it through software. Whatever, I'm just going to leave it on the OPL3 SA. For now, really quick though, since I still have the Pentium 1 installed in there at the moment and haven't gotten the K6 going yet, let me just show you one of the reasons I want to upgrade to it. And that is Ubisoft's Pod from 1997. And I mean, that's all you get. Again, you just don't get much. It just doesn't run. Looks like it'll start and it crashes. Just straight back to the desktop. So that is unfortunately not uncommon at all for this game. There are just so many tiny little quirks and weird things that can go wrong. This is actually not even the same error that I was getting when I had it just on the desk set up outside of a case some weeks ago. Look at this, I was getting a completely different error then, a system out of memory error, or just some kind of memory related thing. I don't know if that means RAM or video or what. It just does weird things. This is one of those games where it is so particular about your hardware and your software and drivers and versions of Windows and everything. So I have just always had better luck with the AMD K6, especially the range between around 133 to 233 megahertz. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and install that, just swap out that Pentium 1. And this also will give us MMX capability, so we can install the MMX version of the game. And I got this cute little thing, look at this. Thermal Master. Just a teeny little Socket 7 cooler with a little pad on there, and get rid of that. And then use some Arctic MX4 because I got some of that lying around from a previous build, so whatever. Swap this out really quick and test a bunch of games. Oh, look at that little guy. That crampy old thermal paste. Yeah, Intel Pentium. No MMX here. And then goes the K6. Wonderful. And of course I will need to change a jumper setting on here because it is a different thing. If I recall, it's just this one right here. It needs to, or is it this one? One of those has to be moved to the left or to the right. I'll check the manual. And that's that. Hey. There you go. AMD K6 166. That's simple. Okay. Get the... Hey, give me that back. I need that. Daggone it. Okay, and give Pod a try once again. So I'm just installing the regular game, non-accelerated with MMX. Okay, that's that. Let's try it again. And there we go. And it even says Pentium MMX. It's kind of funny that I can't get that working on an actual Pentium, albeit without MMX, but yeah, I've just always had better luck with certain CPUs, certain versions of Windows, certain graphics cards, all kinds of different things. Sound cards, it all makes a difference. Not too much to adjust in this version in terms of graphics. It just kind of is what it is. Let's go to Plant 21. There we go. And there's Pod working. Of course, no 3D acceleration here. It's just the MMX software rendered mode. But hey, it's not bad. This is not far off at all from how I played it back in the day. Software rendered on the AMD K6 233 with 32 megs of RAM and Windows 95. So it's always brings back memories seeing the game look and run like this. This is just, it feels like proper Pod. The 233 was a bit quicker, of course, so got a few more frames, but not like significantly better from what I recall. Yeah. I don't know. It's just Pentium MMX, or in this case, the AMD K6 version with MMX instructions. All right, so that is that. Working very nicely. Also, this is kind of a fun little thing here. If we open CPU-Z, then go over to the bench, and we can compare it up against the Pentium 133 and just kind of see vaguely the difference. And there we go. In blue is what we had before, more or less, and the purple is the K6 166. So, I mean, it's a pretty significant difference, actually. Even though there's only a 33 megahertz difference in the main clock speed, I mean, it's a substantial upgrade. I really enjoy these old K6 chips. Oh man, such memories. Yeah, so I've got a lot of things installed on here. Just all kinds of stuff. I don't know how much of it I'm actually going to be showing in this video, but we can go through a fair number of them. But of course, just real quick, we've got to. I think I've already got it set up, so. Yeah, look at it go. I mean, we are only on 320 by 200. We're not pushing the resolution or anything yet, but we could if we wanted. And yeah, even though there's no wave blaster going in there for the wavetable audio, music, whatever, it's fine. Because the OPL3 sounds as it should. Makes me happy, man. This thing is an awesome, awesome setup for, yeah, mid to late 90s games of all kinds, really. Of course, I got Quake. Not GL Quake, it's just regular old Quake. Yeah. Looks awesome. Software rendering, I quite like it. I mean, you know. Yeah, all kinds of awesome stuff you can do with different graphics cards with a setup like this, and I do want to do so. Right now, of course, I just have the 6 megabyte Voodoo card going here. That classic animation it plays when you start up a live mode game. Let's go ahead and do that, actually. One of my favorites from back then. Just the demo for Tomb Raider 2. Yeah. Like this one particular, it was the Venice demo. A ton back then, but yeah, there's all kinds of different cards I'd like to try on here, from yeah, Power VR, Rendition, Matrox, S3. I've got a lot of them. There's a bunch more I still want to get at some point. Stupid sniper, get out of here. I hate that guy. Another dog coming up. Where are you, doggy? There you are, doggy. But yeah, even just the classic Voodoo. I mean, it's a great place to start. Always is. This guy sucks. Stop beating me. Awful. Fine, I will go in the water, you turd. Alright. Anyway, look at this. 3DFX glide goodness. I mean, I think actually, you know what? This might just be running in Direct 3D on the 3DFX card. Because I didn't see the splash screen at the beginning. So let's move over to something that I know for sure will run in glide mode. Need for Speed 2 SE for 3DFX. One of the biggest reasons I wanted a Voodoo card in the first place. Look at that logo! I love that little spinny animation thingy. Dude. I mean, I played the crap out of NFS 2 just in software, and then SE in software. But, yeah, it looks good. Obviously, it is one of those games that really shines with 3DFX because, yeah, it does. All the graphical effects. Ah. 3, 2, 1, go! It's so loud. Oh my word. Okay. But yeah, like the rain, the fog, the shiny cars. And performance is still not like incredibly amazing, but holy crap, this was amazing at the time. It was so much better in software mode than software mode, not in software mode. Now, I actually kind of prefer, good grief, the look of software mode in NFS 2 in many ways. Just This is kind of what I grew up with, of course, and just I'm used to it. The 3DFX mode is so much darker. It's just more shadowy and gray, but it's awesome nonetheless, and I thought it was amazing back then. However, you don't get an in-car view. That is one trade-off, and there's other trade-offs. But I mean, the menu got the little spinny thing that you got in Need for Speed 3 as well. I hate there's not much leeway with the speaker adjustment on this monitor. I like the monitor, but man, there's so overly sensitive. Of course, another one I've got to try, because 1997, Quake 2. And this uses, I believe, OpenGL? How do I have it set? 3DFX OpenGL, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Of course, the original Quake also has its famous GL Quake mode for some 3D acceleration. This looks like software. What is this? Yeah, I went back to software. Okay, well, whatever. This is kind of a cool comparison. So, look how bad this runs in just software. This is going to be running straight off of that S3 card, the Trio 64. Oh, man. Like, I honestly kind of like the way it looks. I'm a fan in a weird way of how software mode has aged and some of the crunchy, just everything, the textures, and yeah. Thing is, though, we'll switch over to 3DFX OpenGL. Yeah, look at that. Totally different aesthetic, but that lighting, so cool. Obviously, it's still not totally silky smooth, but again, doesn't matter. 1997, this was amazing. I don't trust your body. Coming back and shooting me from the floor. Oh, well, you know, I spent too long jibbing that guy, and that's how it goes. Anyway, Quake 2. It was fantastic back then. Still a lot of fun now. Goes without saying. And of course, we can run all kinds of non-3D things just fine as well. Good old Jazz 2 here. It still does take some advantage of better hardware. You know, you're gonna have these slow menus and whatnot, but still. K6166 is plenty. You will still have some slowdown. So, better CPU and graphics would certainly help. But I mean, yeah, more than playable. Whoops. Yeah, it's like whenever things get kind of dark, that overlay that it uses for the spotlight effect there, I remember that. That can slow down on all kinds of different systems. I tried to shoot you. There you go. In fact, I remember cranking it down to like 512 by 384 or something. Yeah, that. Yeah, that definitely helps. But whatever, still more than playable. Another one I wanted to try out is Interstate 76. Typically, you run into issues with textures with Voodoo 1 cards if they're over 4 megabytes. Yeah. So yeah, this is the upgraded gold version of the game with 3DFX capabilities and such. But yeah, anyway, usually if it's over 4 megs of video RAM combined, then you run into some issues. Like I know on 8 meg Voodoo 1 cards, it just freaks out. However, this is a 6 megabyte one. I've never tried that. And we'll just see if we get the proper textures like on the road and the ground and street signs and stuff. Usually those are messed up. Huh. I mean, it's looking good, actually. Yeah, you'd often see like street sign textures on the road and just weird things that are the wrong color and all corrupt and stuff. This doesn't look like that, so awesome. And over here, you punk. It's running pretty good, too. Oh, man. Launched me. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, you know, the expected slowdown and things are going nuts. There we go. Okay, now there is a little bit, you see that? The steering wheel? That's the kind of stuff that you often can get on Voodoo cards of over 4 megs combined in memory. So I don't know if that's like just a temporary glitch or if that's just actually a thing we're running into. Either way though, dude, Interstate 76. That is pretty awesome. I've actually never seen the game run that decently, you know, and looking correctly on a 3DFX card. I've actually always been trying it on like, say a Voodoo 2 or a Voodoo 3 that is either 12 or 16 megs combined in memory, and I've never tried it on one of my Voodoo 1 cards. One last thing to try, well, mostly last, is I want to see if I can get 3DFX mode going in Pod, because yeah, we had this earlier, just the large installation for MMX, and of course here it is just normal. Both of these are software rendering, but you see it has all of these different cards and modes available, but it actually doesn't detect the Voodoo card, and it won't let you install it unless it detects it. Now, you can force that by copying over a Glide library to the correct spot in your hard drive, but so yeah, my question is, will the updated version of Pod detect this particular Voodoo card? And it does, look at that. Large installation for MMX with 3DFX card. It detects all kinds of things. Let's install it and see if it works on here, because this is kind of like Interstate 76. One of those games that just has weird issues with different Voodoo cards, and usually you get some textures crapping out in a different way than you do from Interstate 76. We'll see. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah, it has copied over the correct executable. Let's see. That is a good sign, man. I do not often see that. Seriously, if you've never gone through the rigmarole of trying to get this game working on different systems. Oh, dude. All right, sound is a little garbly, but see, now here we have the graphics options we can go through. I can't max the resolution, but we can lower it, change draw distance and such. Kind of garbly sound is unfortunate. Maybe it'll clear up once we're actually in the game. There's a 3D spinning cars that you get in 3DFX. Oh, nice. So nice. Oh, dude! It does have some of the garbled textures, though, as I was kind of worried about. Not many, though. It's awesome seeing it run at all on an old 3DFX card. Okay, yeah, see, there. Look at those textures. Those are a little bonkers. Not what it's supposed to be at all, obviously. Unless you're just going for an even more abstract-looking racing game from France. So, how about, let's try Beltane. That one, I remember that one being a good example of just things being ridiculously wrong. No, that looks pretty decent. Sometimes you'll get like these things just covered in like stripes, black and white stripes, pink stripes, orange and blue. I've seen all sorts of weird things because I've tried this game on seriously every single system that I build that is even remotely capable of running it. This is one of the better results. It's actually better than I thought it would be. The speed is good though. I'm glad to see that. Sometimes it doesn't quite figure out what your CPU is doing and it'll go at like twice the speed, even on slower CPUs like this one. But no, this is pretty much ideal in terms of performance. Oh, that's awesome. So I think if I were to swap out the Voodoo one, the Canopus, Canopus, I don't know how to say that. That one that's in there for a 4 meg one, it'd probably be even better. But I'm happy with this for now. Even the garbly sound, even with that, this is just awesome. Okay, I got a couple little finishing touches and we'll be done with this build for this video. Alright, and the final thing I want to do is stickers, because I got another shipment in, ordered from Geekenspiel. These decals. So I got a lovely AMD K6 MMX Enhanced Processor sticker. Look at that. And the other one here, of course, some designed for Microsoft Windows 95 stickers made to look like the old style of those you get on OEM machines back in the day. And yeah, if you remember, I mean, I still have that badge that it came with. I mean, it also said food on there at one point, but I like that ECM badge. I'm keeping that. And the Energy Star thing, that's awesome. Normally I would stick like an LGR case badge or something on here, but... yes, satisfying. Right, so with that is the AMD K6 Socket 7 build complete. At least for now, since this really is a never-ending project box. One that does precisely what I wanted in terms of performance and capabilities for DOS and Windows 95 games circa 1997. Yeah, the case is yellowed and cramped, but it brings me back to working on random clone PCs back in the day. And I actually like how it looks, so it's fine. A tad slow, but that's the idea. I've got faster retro gaming rigs. I didn't need speed, I needed slow, without being too slow. Really showing the difference an early 3D accelerator can make. And hopefully it'll provide a nice base system I can use for testing certain bits of oddware and random software in the future, along with various 90s upgrades I want to try out. For now though, I'm gonna continue enjoying some Glide Mode Pod, and I hope that you enjoyed watching this all come together. And do check out my other build videos if you like this kind of thing, or stick around for more LGR things already in the pipeline. And as always, thanks for watching.